All right, welcome back, you guys. So the next question we're going to talk about is question number 8. The idea is China has been buying dollar-denominated assets to keep our dollar, not their dollar, to keep our dollar, to keep the exchange rate of the dollar from falling, from depreciating. So think about it. China's economy is totally based on us buying their goods. If our dollar were to depreciate, we couldn't buy Chinese goods. So China is buying our goods to maintain our exchange rate, so we keep buying their goods, feeding the cycle, if you will. Number 9, exchange rates are thought to be determined by, we'll talk about this in just a moment, but in the short run, exchange rates are determined by interest rates because we're concerned about what our money could be doing elsewhere. In the long run, it's all about purchasing power because we're concerned about our neighbors in the long run. So once again, short run, interest rates, long run, purchasing power. The next question deals with something just a little bit different. Number 10, deals with the equation for real exchange rates. The equation for real exchange rates is as follows. It's the actual exchange rate divided by the prices everywhere else divided by the prices at home. So we take exchange rate, maybe 0.7, divide it by the prices in Europe, maybe 80 euros, and divide that by the price in America, maybe $71. And so that's how that equation is typically written out. It's the exchange rate divided by whatever the price is in another country, which is then divided by whatever the price is at home. Dealing with a question like number 11, it's actually an AE question. Bit of a helpful review here. If you recall, any change in AE divided by 1 minus the slope equals the change in Y. Therefore, any change in net exports, other things remain the same, is our change in AE. So we could set it up as simply as 0.1 over 1 minus the slope will give us our answer. But the answer will come out in trillions. So please recall that 0.1 trillion is equal to 100 billion, because the rule is 1,000 billion equals 1 trillion. So hopefully that helps you out just a little bit. Gives you a clear picture of how it is we answer the question. And the change in Y is what we're looking for in this question. So 12, 13, and 14 can all be answered with this handy diagram. Maybe it's worth pausing the screen so you can take a look at it. But the short-run international trilemma says countries can have 2 of the following 3: fixed exchange rates, free capital flows, and independent monetary policy. Moving on to something like number 13, the long-run international economic trilemma emphasizes free trade as opposed to free capital. Now, the short run is defined by interest rate, and the long run is defined by purchasing power, and that should really help you answer number 14. Moving on to a question like 15, the idea is if we're given the yen over dollar, and we're given the euro over dollar, that's the yen-dollar exchange rate. Sorry, dollar-euro exchange rate, dollar-yen exchange rate, but we're asked for the yen-euro exchange rate. And the euro-yen exchange rate is yen over euros. So what do we have to do to this so that we can get this? The idea is we need to take the reciprocal. We need to actually take dollars over euros, which is the reciprocal of the item you're given, and multiply it by yen over dollars, so that the dollar signs cancel out. So the idea is if your euro-yen exchange rate, your euro-dollar exchange rate is 0.8, then your dollar-euro exchange rate will just be 1 over 0.8. Or the way it might look, excellent. So that's how we go about solving that question. Moving on, to question number 16. Number 16 is an elasticity question. Recall that elasticity was a percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price. Well, now we're going to do the percent change in the quantity of money and divide that by the percent change in the exchange rate. Now note we still need to do midpoints, so it's more like Q1 minus Q2 over Q mid, all divided by exchange rate 1 minus exchange rate 2, all over the midpoint between the two exchange rates. That's how you solve, absolute value. Do not forget those absolute values. That's how it's solved. That's the equation. Moving on to number 17, quantitative easing is just a means of lowering interest rates in the long term. We'll talk about that during the review if you guys come to it. Number 18, we're going to be dealing once again with the dynamic exchange rate. The dynamic exchange rate according to interest rate parity is that the interest rate everywhere else minus the interest rate at home will give us the exchange rate. Well, the problem is here we're given the exchange rate. So the market expects E star to be 1%. And because we're given dollars, we know Chicago is at home. Chicago is absolutely at home. So what we can do is we can plug Chicago's interest rate here and solve for X. And that's how we would get the interest rate in Paris. Just as a bit of a tidbit, a couple of authors lived in France because the franc was undervalued. When a currency is undervalued, it simply means that your dollar goes farther. You could do more with a dollar in a currency that's undervalued. The dollar goes farther. Last, let's deal with number 20. Number 20 is a bit complicated because it deals with, instead of the real exchange rate, the dynamic real exchange rate. Earlier we defined the real exchange rate as the exchange rate divided by the change in prices. Well, this is just a log linear variation of it. It's the dynamic exchange rate minus the dynamic change in prices in Europe minus the dynamic change in prices at home. So everywhere else at home. So the idea is, suppose during 2011 the exchange rate of the dollar changes nominally by 2%, while prices in Europe change by 4% and prices in America change by 1%. Well, this all has to do with signs, right? 2 minus 3 is negative. So whatever this value turns out to be, whatever our our real exchange rate turns out to be, we have to ask ourselves, is it positive, negative, or 0? If it's positive, we actually expect an appreciation. If it's negative, we expect a depreciation. And if it's 0, there should be no change. So hopefully this video prepares you pretty well to answer the quiz. If you have any additional questions, please see me on Facebook or shoot me an email anytime at david@tutoringzone.com. You guys have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.